Barbara Ehrenreich is my guest. Her latest book, her latest effort, This Land is Their Land. Joining me in studio, she's going to be at the Lindale United Church of Christ on 31st and Aldrich tonight at 7:30 p.m. You can go and listen to her speak. She's going to read some from her book, I assume, as well. And again, Barbara, thank you for staying with me. You have written about a whole series of things. I mean, these are articles about just a whole ton of different things. One of the things that you write about is immigration. It is one of those incredibly hot issues, but I also find it interesting for a different reason. Is that a lot of the things that you write about and a lot of the major issues that are out there seem to split left and right. That issue doesn't. It splits differently, meaning who's for it, who's against it, and why they're for it. You have big business sometimes on one side, you have individuals on the other, you have all sorts of people all over the place.
That's right, and you have the Catholic Church defending illegal immigrants, and even sheltering them. It is a confusing thing, but I find that there's just so much hypocrisy about this issue. I mean, a lot of the opposition I should say, the hostility, the punitive rage toward illegal immigrants comes from people who are very much dependent upon their labor. Maybe not as directly as Mitt Romney was, who, as you recall, had illegal or undocumented Guatemalan landscapers
working on his mansion.
Yeah, but the most day laborers are actually employed by individuals, not large companies.
Yeah, you write about that in the book. Is it some 49% of the immigrants who are undocumented who come into the country, they're actually working for homeowners. I mean, they're actually going to them.
They're not, true, there are the people in the meatpacking industry and everything who are working for big business. But, a lot of us are just, I can't say myself, include myself in this, but a lot of people who will be very self-righteous about, it's a crime to enter the country, may have an undocumented nanny, maid, person who mows their lawn.
Wasn't that John Ashcroft, as I recall? Was he one of the Attorney General who had an issue like that somewhere in the past?
No, there was a woman who almost became Clinton's, Baird, Zoe Baird.
That's right. Okay, I stand corrected.
Now, I don't know what her position was on immigration, but she didn't get the job because it turned out that she had an undocumented nanny. And what was really horrified me about that story is she paid that nanny $5 an hour.
See, when I look at this story, I always find it strange on two sides, because I've heard the argument before that it drives down labor costs. And I've heard that from some of the people who say we shouldn't have a minimum wage. We should be able to pay people whatever we want, well, and they want to pay people as little as they possibly want. You can't make an argument both ways. If nothing else, you have to be consistent about what it is you say. And I can't think that you can argue one and then argue the other.
That's a very good point. There isn't a lot of empirical data, but there is a study that was done in California, a state subject to massive immigration in recent years, showing that there wasn't an effect on the wages of native-born local people from all those, from that massive influx. Nor was there an effect on the number of jobs available to them.
Again, I think back to my time. I'm originally from San Diego, and so I saw this a lot growing up in San Diego County. And I still remember when there was a crackdown once on people who were undocumented workers who were working in the fields. And the problem that those owners had was that they couldn't get Americans to do the job. They tried. I mean, they put out ads. They said, look, if you come out here, because they picked up all the people who were undocumented, and they put ads out and said, look, our strawberries are rotting in the fields. We need people to come out. And I think 4 people showed up. 1 person lasted the day. And they needed people by the hundreds. And what happens when we're dependent upon 19-cent iceberg lettuce? That's not 19 cents anymore, but for a longest period of time it was. And we seem to want, again, both sides. I want my stuff for nice and cheap, but I don't want to have to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, there's another way of looking at all this, and that is, most Mexican immigrants don't come here for the beautiful climate. I'm sorry, you probably feel that the Minneapolis climate is worth leaving Mexico for, but it's not.
Well, it depends. There are times of the year when I think most people would probably say, are you crazy?
Right. They don't come here for that. They come here because they're desperate. And one of the reasons, just one, is NAFTA, which really undermined the small-scale agriculture in Mexico, leaving 1 to 2 million people, or I should say the farmers, and without employment anymore. That's a lot of what we've gotten here.
Isn't that the perfect example of using the term free trade? To me, it's the equivalent of using the Patriot Act phrase.
Yeah.
If you can
Yeah.
use a really good phrase, as soon as I hear a good phrase, I always think, uh-oh, if this is the phrase they're using, there's got to be something I'm missing. So what comes next then? I find that there are a lot of Americans who are so tired that they've been pushed both directions by what the Clinton administration did, then what the Bush administration did, that they're so tired of it that they simply check out. That they say, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't trust anybody, it's every man for himself. And then they sort of take the approach that it's the Gordon Gekko world, where it's whatever I get. Greed is good because I just got to get my own because I don't trust those people.
Well, I think that the time for that kind of outlook is past, and it ended in August '07 with the mortgage meltdown, with the subprime mortgage crisis. That now things are going wrong, they're in a cascading kind of way. You can't just say, I'm going to burrow into my den and turn on TV and ignore it. Well, not with gas prices, not with food prices, not with the layoffs, which have been coming at the rate of about 60,000 a month.
Yeah, but Congress is still ignoring that. I mean, in the end, are they addressing this for real? We've talked about it here on the program, where if I file for bankruptcy and I lose my home, some people will say, well, that's my problem. But it isn't just my problem, because every house on my entire block, it's been proven, will probably drop a certain amount of value. So all of a sudden, the problem isn't mine, it's all of ours.
Well, I would say, even though I don't live in your neighborhood, it's my problem too, because when they can get away with that kind of thing with one person, it affects us all. You know what they used to do in the 30s, when the cops and whatever would come, and the bankers, to repossess a home, the neighbors would gather around it and make it impossible for them to enter.